Alrighty, thanks for being here today. We're going to go ahead and get started. We may have some still joining us, but I want to leave plenty of time for this incredible journey today that Chandler is going to share. In the fall of 2012, Chandler started an exterior restoration company specializing in teaching and educating property owners about the condition of the property. For the past 8 years in this business, he went from 59 customers in his first year to 750 customers in 2020 and over $12 million in gross revenue. He and his team of 26 members support the business, and they usually have 75 in the field every day. He not only owns this business and has been recognized for it, but I want to give a little tidbit on why I think he's successful. He not only owns the business, but Chandler silently has established relationships that run deep in the community. And one of his partnerships was Iowa Juneteenth. They donated to the financial success of the organization. And this relationship has led to donations in multiple inner city churches and has provided new exterior renovations, simple fixes, and multiple costs of up to $30,000 and no money from the church. Chandler has donated that. So I'm going to hand it over to Chandler because I don't want to give too much away of his story, but I'm going to let him take it away. He has an amazing journey to share today. He did ask that if you have questions, please put them down in the chat so we don't lose those questions, but we're going to hold them to the end. But as you think of it, put them in there so that we don't miss them, and we'll get to them at the end. So Chandler, take us away.
Christina, thank you. Can you give me a thumbs up? Everybody can hear me? Can you hear me? Great. Well, this is a little different for me. I'm typically the guy that is out on a job site wearing a tool belt or working, and the growth of where we were and where we are today has been quite a challenge. What I'd like to do today is just go through the story of what got us from the early years to where we're at today, and basic some insights maybe of what I've seen that's been successful. I know we have noted here there's 5, but there might be other things that people might find in the venture and the path that we've taken. So as I go through, I'll just tell you a little bit about our history and my story. Our story starts back in the early 70s. Born and raised in North Central Iowa. Here's a picture of our family right there. I'm the little kid there with the little Mickey Mouse outfit on. And we were raised up on a farm, North Central Iowa, Clarion, Belmont, Eagle Grove, that area. I'm really good at talking to pigs and chickens. There's a great storyline that goes back on that. Someday, if you see me, you can ask me about it. But, you know, back in the late 70s, you can see in the background, we had an old farmhouse. And what happened is we wanted something different. So my father decided that if you look there in front of that old farmhouse was an old railroad depot. And it was built back in the 1860s. And my dad bought that at an auction for about $25. And initially what he bought it for was for firewood. So we could heat the house in the back, and he decided that it was in better condition, if you can look at it, than the house in the background. And so we decided Dad decided he was going to renovate it. And what happened for me is I started to fall in love with construction through that process, that to this day, we're even still working on that. But I was able to work on that property and learn a little bit about construction and that side of it. Up there at the farm, the one thing that I had learned through those early childhood years on into high school is what I wanted to get into was into some type of medical field. I have a family member that has disabilities, and being around that, I just felt like that was a calling of mine. I thought I was going to go to school for nursing and ended up going to school out in Ohio. And through a sports scholarship, ended up not getting out of school early, didn't graduate, went on to down in Kansas, got in the insurance industry for a little bit, realized that I love the outdoors, trying to get back home to Iowa. I ended up moving to the Des Moines area in the mid 90s, 96, 97, moved into back to Des Moines, and I met my future wife, who actually was related to 5 home builders. And in that process, one day, I was walking around one of the houses that he was building, and in the backyard, he had a deck package sitting there. And I just asked him, I said, hey, you know, what's a guy get paid to put that deck up? And he said around $2,000. And I just said to him, you know what, I'll do that for you if you'll just teach me how to do it. So in a weekend, I went out and I put a deck together. And in a matter of a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I built a deck and went back there on a Sunday afternoon, evening. And he walked around with me and he said, you know what, that's one of the best decks I've seen. And he proceeded to write me a check for $2,000. And at the time I was in sales and I made maybe $2,000 in a month, and he cut me a check for 3 days worth of work. And I realized really quickly that construction might be my calling. It was outdoors. It was physical labor. It reminded me of back at the farm, talking to the pigs and the chickens. And it really came natural to me. So I started doing some power washing for him in basements. I was working on new houses that they were closing, building a lot of decks. And ultimately, I thought I wanted to become a home builder. So in the process, I decided to get into the framing side of things. And from that 96, 97 through 2012, I became a framing contractor, and I was involved with over 700 projects here in the Des Moines area. Between new home construction to assisted living facilities to hotels, a lot of commercial buildings here in the area. I was involved, or at least my crews were involved in the process of framing those buildings up. And then what happened was, as we got to the year 2008, and it looks like we have a lot of people on here, but maybe you can relate to that. You know, in 2008, the stock market crashed. And there was a lot of crazy things going on. Here's a Time magazine talking about the crash. You know, right here's the actual chart of what happened during that time frame. And there was panic. And for me, being in new construction, there was a panic on my side in that, you know, we had done very well for ourselves going into 2008, where I had 3 different framing crews. I was working on 35 to 40 houses per year per crew, making a 6-figure income. And there was just chaos now, and there was an unknown. And when this crash happened, it affected new construction, and it was really scary. So what happened to me is I had to look at closing the hatches. Whenever there's a big storm at sea, the big ships out there, the first thing they do is they close the hatches. And what that meant for us was cut back on our cost as a family, not going out to eat. At the time, I have some hobbies that are probably downfall, but I love to snowmobile, and I had bought some new snowmobiles. And here's actually the one I'm talking about right now. But I had been out west, and I was coming back out, and when I say west, out in the mountains snowmobiling, and I had just bought this new snowmobile for like $11,000. And the first thing that came to my mind was, you need to get rid of that, because you need that money, because if this gets bad, you're going to need that money. So I quickly ran an ad on Craigslist on a Friday. That Saturday morning, I got a call from this guy up in Minnesota. His name was Tony, and Tony was all interested in my snowmobile. And he said, you know what, I'll meet you up in Clear Lake, and I'll buy that snowmobile from you. So I was like, that's great. Going to get some more cash. This will help us. When I got there, at the time, I had a fairly nice truck. I thought I had a real nice snowmobile. I had this great deal. And as I pull into that Casey's up there in Clear Lake on the west side, maybe you guys are familiar with that gas station, but I pulled in, and there was a bigger truck with a nicer trailer with more toys in it. And it was this guy named Tony. And I started talking to him, and he proceeded to pull out $100 bills, $10,000 in cash. And he starts handing me these $10,000. And I just said to him, I was like, what do you do for a living? I'm in construction, and I'm closing the hatches. And he goes, I'm in construction. He goes, I do restoration work. And it was boggling to me in my mind. I was kind of like, what's this? You know, I'll take my cash. Let's go home. I can get this to my wife, and we can continue on growing our business or just surviving. And that whole drive back to Des Moines in my mind was, what does this guy do that's in construction that I'm missing out on? And it was very interesting to me. But during the crash, as this all went through, we fought that from 2008 all the way through 2012. And at the time, I thought that volume would just help me out doing bigger projects. I ended up contracted on a lot of commercial stuff. I got into paneled buildings. Here are some of the buildings like out by the Walmart out in West Des Moines. We put a daycare in, and here's some of these commercial buildings that we did. But in this crash, what I was fighting was I went from $7.50 a square foot as a framing contractor to get paid as little as $3.25. You know, I went from 35 projects a year to 10 projects a year. I went from getting paid every week to contractors paying once a month, sometimes every 60. And ultimately, my last job I did, it was over 120 days out getting paid. At the same time, the state of Iowa had the misclassification unit. So they were going out and crews or companies that I was subbing work to, they were classifying them as employees. So we were working with the workforce development in the state of Iowa. We had OSHA. If you look at the center picture right there, there's a gentleman taking a photo, and that's a photo of an OSHA. That's the OSHA contract or the OSHA inspector coming out and regulating on one of our jobs, which is, again, thousands of dollars. On top of that, anybody that was behind on their Fed or state revenue payments and getting caught up on payments. And we went from that 6-figure income and doing well off in 2008, 2009, to by the time we got to 2012, we were making under $20,000 a year and basically going through all of our savings. And by the end, or going into 2012, in the middle of it, we were down to our last penny. Literally, as a family, we were down to less than $5,000. I looked at my wife and I said, you know, we've got to look for something different. And so I started searching. And one thing, you know, and you can kind of look at this in COVID right now, searching for what is called a recession-proof job. And a lot of times, does one of those exist? You know, does it exist, and what actually is it? In Wikipedia, a recession-proof job is a job that one is likely to be able to find even during hard economic times. Though these jobs are not truly recession-proof, they have a continual demand for workers, thereby increasing the chances that one will have the skill set to find employment. The thing that came across me is I've never been employed. I was always self-employed. And my question was, can I make the money I need? You know, well, they want me, to the point of, do I have to move? And, you know, is there such a job out there? And those were all concerns for me, because by that time I had 4 kids. I had a family, I had a wife, I was settled into the Urbandale area, and we didn't want to make any changes. And there is one thing I knew, and I would say this is one of the 5 insights I have, is I did have a will to win. You know, I had an intense desire to succeed. You know, the one thing that I never wanted to have in my life is I never, and still this day, I don't want to be average. I don't want to be ordinary. I want to be something special. I want to be something that's unique. And the one thing I knew I have, even now, is I have a will to win. And the other thing that I have is confidence. And I think as owners of businesses, you have to have a will. You have to have confidence that you're going to be successful. No matter what it is, no matter what the challenge is, you have to have those things to be able to be an effective leader and to be able to move a business to a different level. So we started to look, and the one thing that came up, it was in November of 2012. And I actually have a post that came off of Facebook, and you might find this interesting, but that same guy, that guy named Tony out of Minnesota, he ran an ad. And this was his ad right here: looking for people to work hard and want to make a lot of money. Area for hire is in Chicago, Minnesota, Denver, and Dallas. And if you want to give this guy a call. I sat there and I looked at it and I was like, what is this? This is the same guy that bought my snowmobile when my business was crashing and we started to struggle. I looked into his Facebook page and I saw trips here, going to this. He had a boat down in the Gulf, and he was just doing all these amazing things that, you know, I'm in construction too, and I'm struggling. And I took the time and I made the call. I said to my wife, are you willing to move to Minnesota or Denver? And we thought Denver was going to be a place we'd move to. And so we, in early February of 2013, we drove up to Minneapolis and we met with this guy named Tony. And in that process, Tony introduced me to technology and construction. And here's exactly what we looked at. If you look on that map on the left-hand side, it was June of 2011. And Tony was in the industry of exterior restoration, working with insurance companies to help customers that have filed insurance claim get work done. And that map you're looking on the left-hand side is the city of Des Moines, Iowa. on June 9th, 2011. And if you look at the right photo, that's actually a storm swath, and it shows all of the swaths of hail that came through this market on that date. And if you're able to zoom in on it, you can see the size of the hail, anywhere from 1 inch to 3 inches in hail. And it planted a seed in my mind that's why this guy is so successful. He's found the right market. He's found the right niche, and I'm going to be successful in Minneapolis and Denver. But he was showing me the Des Moines market. And what he wanted to do was offer me an opportunity. And that goes back to that will of winning and confidence. He knew I had a construction background, and he saw my desire to win. And so he gave me an opportunity to come down into the Des Moines market and actually start a franchise in his business, or in that business. He was going to teach me everything I needed to know. One stat that he showed me that made it even more exciting for me is in the United States, out of 100 homeowners, over 2 of them hire some type of, or they file some type of property wind and hail claim every year, which is the average. Well, I looked at the Des Moines market. Do you know in Des Moines, there's 317,000 homes is what there is? Well, if you do the math on that, that means in this market alone, there's somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 homes every year that there's some type of property claim being filed on them, which plays right into what his business is and what it does and how they need solid contractors to do the work. The other thing that I looked at, I was like, you know what, that's really great. Let's look at some other statistics. We need to know what the dollar value is. So we went in and we looked at the dollar value. The average claim back in between 2013 and 2017 was right at $10,000. Well, you do the math on that, that's over $264 million a year of potential business. And we're looking at 6,000 to 7,000 homeowners. If there's only 100 true contractors in the Des Moines area that can work on that, to me, that's 50 to 100 jobs. You do the math on that, that's $500,000 to $1 million in business. And I was like, that's all I needed to know. And what Tony did is he offered me that opportunity to come in and start this franchise. So in April of 2013, we opened our first office over off 120, or not out of 128th, over off of 86th and University is where we offered or opened our first office. And at that time, what he did is he started to teach me everything that they did. And what happened in 2013 was there was a lot of humility and a lot of learning that went on. What was great about it is I learned how to do it, but I also learned how not to do it. See, I lived out, and here's a map. I live out on 100. I used to live out on 156 off of Winston in the Urbandale area. And there's a little checkered mark, or a little box of where my place was. And we actually were out in our neighborhood and we were doing business and we were helping homeowners out. But the problem is their process was every single person you talked to, every home you went to, they told us you need to tell those homeowners they have damage and they need to file a claim. No different than just this last year. There was a storm that happened up here in July up in Johnston and over in Urbandale and up in Grimes that the storm came through. And a lot of contractors from out of town showed up and they told everybody file claims on everything, whether there's damage or not, the insurance company's going to pay for it. And that's worked off of numbers. And to me, and where I was raised up on that farm in north central Iowa, that isn't right. That isn't the right way to do it. And what happened is this guy, Larry, and you can look there, that's on 161st Street, I believe. Larry's a retired Navy guy. I would say he's in his mid 80s now, but he pulled into my driveway on a Sunday morning and I'm sitting out in the front. My kids are out playing the yard and Larry pulls up in his Park Avenue and he walks up to me, and awkward because I don't really know Larry outside of I've helped him before. And Larry goes, Chandler, he goes, I'd like to talk to you inside at your kitchen table. And I don't know where you guys are from, but when you have a military guy from the Navy that's retired in his 80s ask you to go to the kitchen table, there's something going on. And he took me in and we sat down at that kitchen table and he told me a story about how across the street, see, this company sent out a national sales director to teach me how to sell because I wasn't being successful enough for him, because all I was doing was filing claims on stuff I actually found damage on. And in that process, Larry told me about how this national sales director was across the street and how he humiliated the insurance adjuster and how he made the homeowner and how he was doing everything the wrong way. And he just said, Chandler, whatever you're doing, whatever this company is, you need to turn and run the opposite direction as fast as you can. And so I made a decision right then that that company wasn't right for me. And in the year, finalized in 2013, I did 59 projects is what we did total. And what I wanted to do was get away from that business. And that brings me to another point of, the 5 things is you have to be honest. And I wanted to build a business that was built off of honesty. I wanted to build a business off of integrity. And everything that I was being taught by that company did not abide by those guidelines, and it did not fit me right. And it wasn't something that was in and settled right in my soul. So in 2013 to 14, and even my good friend Tony, at this time, Tony, my good friend, he also agreed that, this wasn't right. And he wanted to get out of that business as well because his partner was running it the wrong direction. And so in 2014, he allowed me to get away from that franchise. And I basically started our own brand called Superstorm Restoration. Here's a photo of me out snowmobiling, and it kind of gives you an idea of where our brand came from. But the brand was built on one of our first logos. It was built on 20 years of construction experience. It was established, and what we wanted to establish was a brick and mortar restoration contractor here in the Des Moines area that can serve local people by doing what was right. Our mission, and it still is always, is to teach and educate property owners. And it's built on a simple process. That process is to provide our own owners with a simple process that presents them with options for their potential needs. In full, we do a full, complete evaluation. We provide details of the condition of the properties. We then educate them. We allow them to make options, whether they have maintenance work, whether they have repair work, whether they actually want to file a claim, and then provide them with the most excellent service, contracted services in the market. And we want to be their customer for life. That's what our goal was, and that's what it is. We do a property evaluation, roofing, siding, gutters, windows, and paint, and even more, and miscellaneous items. We try to leverage technology because what we are searching for was the weather events and what had happened in the area and how it could help them out. But again, the honesty and integrity side of that allowed customers to see what we're doing, what was right. Out of 10 evaluations of homes, what we had found out was 3 to 4 of them, actually, we could help them out in their services. The other 6 really didn't need to file a claim. And if you're running a business, you have to build it off of honesty and integrity. If there's ever a time that you are questioning your ethics or questioning where you're from or what it means to you, you need to really question what you're doing. And it was one of the things that was very influential to us in building our business. Another thing that you have to look at, and this is a core to my business, is your faith. Faith with empathy. See, our end of that first year, there's our faith, and then going into the empathy side of things. At the end of our first year, the problem was we only did 59 jobs. And if you recall, between 2009 and 2012, we had ran ourselves into the hole where we didn't have any money left over. Fortunately, what happened that year is through faith, because we did a lot of praying. And at that time, there was a storm that was happening. And one of my oldest son is actually from a town down in Missouri called Trenton, Missouri. And he made a phone call to me one day in May 10th of 2014. There was a storm, and through technology, I'm able to sit here and I'm able to track a storm while it's happening. And I started to see, and this is a map of that technology. And you can see where there was a storm that was actually coming through, and this was the path. And if you look there, it says May 10th at 4:05. Well, at 4:05, my son calls me from his high school, and he says, Dad, he's in Trenton, Missouri. He says, there's little hailstones. And if you can look right where it says 4:05, that blue line does a 90-degree turn. And what it did is that storm was on a path that was not going to hit that hometown of Trenton where my son lived, where his grandfather had been a contractor for many years. And he had a great influence in the community, where it took a right-hand turn and went right over that town with 2.5 inch hail, up to golf ball size hail, and damaged a lot of homes, and which presented us with an opportunity. And that opportunity was to go out and do 100+ homes that year. But the only problem was, for us, that's 1 hour and 45 minutes away, is to stay there, I'd have to drive down. And by then we were so broke, I couldn't afford to drive back and forth. And so the challenge was, how was I going to be able to do business in Trenton, Missouri, and be able to make it work with no money. And what happened was, as we were walking through Shields, my wife and I one day, on a Sunday, the week after the storm happened, and I was just like, how are we going to make it work? And sitting in Shields, there was a 10-person tent right there. That's not the exact tent, but what our tent looked like. And my wife said, you need to buy that tent right there, and you need to live in that tent. And so we bought that tent for around $300, and we started living on in a campground. And right there's a picture of the campground right there. That was actually one of the sites we stayed at. The picture there on the right was me the morning, what's it say? I think it's June 25th, 2014. I'm waking up to deers in our front yard. Why? Because it was $15 a night to stay there. And by that time, I had a team, and a couple of the guys, or at least one of the individuals that was working with me is still here on our team today, actually slept in those tents with us. That year, we were able to go out, and we did 120 projects is what we did that year. And I wanted to go back with the empathy side of things. That just talks about where empathy comes from, is when you're serving people and you're wanting to build a business, I think you really have to have empathy. You have to understand who you're serving and what you're doing with them. And I think you also need to go back to the core of where you came from. Even today, with all the success we have, going back to those nights we slept in the tent. You know, there was nights that it rained so bad at that campground that we woke up and we were floating in our air mattresses on 2 inches of water. And we have story after story of where we came from. But to have empathy when you're working with company or with individuals or whoever you do business with. That year we did 120 projects. And then moving forward, the thing you have to be, another value I think you have to have is you have to have passion. You have to have passion. You have to use that passion, number one, in your business and what you're trying to do. Be passionate and believe in what you're doing and what you're selling or what you're offering. But you also have to use that passion to inspire, and that you want to find a team and you want to build a team around you that's going to help you inspire those to move forward and grow the business. We had a passion. We had a passion for our brand. Through the branding that we made, we took time and we invested into having quality vehicles. Maybe you guys that are in the Des Moines area, around this area, you might have seen our vehicles out on the street. We're very passionate about our brand and what it does. We also wanted to have, with passion, we have a process that we have in place, which can help inspire a team that you want to build around it. And one thing that's inspiring, I believe, for us in the industry that we are in is in construction or in exterior restoration, roofing, siding, windows, and gutters. There truly is a wild, wild west still out there back in the day, or like it was back in the day, where you have what we call chucking the trucks, guys that pull up and really aren't using technology. They're not using CRM programs. They're not using the internet. And one thing that we have to offer for our team is we have all these different technologies. We had a customer relationship management ability. We had a central area. We have a central data collection area. We have a production management ability so our team can manage with it. You know, all this comes together, financial tracking ability, information in real time. We had become the leaders in our industry, even though we weren't there. We were looking at where we wanted to be, and we were taking step by step, taking the steps to get where we needed to be, using the passion, trying to inspire to keep ourselves moving forward. Talking about the data, you know, we're storing over 150,000 photos. Now I think we're over 200,000 photos. We have 75,000 plus documents. We're tracking all that information as we move forward as a company. In 2015, we did right at 142 projects. As we move into 2016, we need to focus on production and sales is what we needed to focus on. We had equipment. Like I said before, I never wanted to be average or ordinary, so I wanted to find things that were unique. We were one of the first contractors in our market to have unique equipment such as Equipter that you can back up to a property, lift up. It helped us with our customers. We simply wanted to be something special. We wanted to be unique, and we wanted to stand out from the crowd and those that are around us. And over time, through all these different factors, or all these different honesty, integrity, through faith and empathy, through the passion and using it to inspire people, we were able to move forward. Identify what tools that we use. These were things that we needed to use, and more data that we kept growing and pushing ourselves forward, looking at where we had been. We did not know when we needed to be to these properties and how we're going to help these homeowners out at the time. But as we grew, again, in 2016, we grew to another size to 240 projects. Now the challenge is we need to become creative, showing some of our growth that we had, to show some of the pains that we went through. We went from 59 projects to 254. We went to over $2 million in business, and our company kept growing the direction we needed. But again, we need to become creative just to separate ourselves from the competition. We need to be innovative. In 2017, we got into more challenges that came up. Some of those challenges are in manual inspections. So as we're going out on our properties, there's all these different challenges that we go through: climbing on the roof, the safety, being able to accurately identify the damages. So when we went to insurance companies, our credibility, our integrity was all impacted by the technology that we're using. We introduced into the market, and we are a leader in the market, and nationally, we are one of the leaders when it comes to contractors finding something unique using drones. We now use drones on all of our evaluations that we do. We've actually gone to the next level in the innovation side, where we actually are creating our own drone platform. We actually have our own evaluation process on an app that we've created as a company. So constantly be thinking forward. What can you do in your business that can separate yourself from the competition? For us, we've got ourselves in a position now where we have our own proprietary app. We're going to have our own proprietary drone software that we can actually use to grow and grow our business as we go into other markets. Within the next 5 years, Nick Gerhardt, he used to be a former insurance commissioner in the state of Iowa. He said in the next 5 years, he thought that all drone evaluations or all inspections are going to be by drones. And that's one of the reasons we started to go into that technology. It helped us when it came to commercial size. 2017, at the end of the year, we did 270 projects, still growing. We wanted to verify that technology leads the way. That was from Keith Denner. He's a large apartment complex owner here in town. With that technology, within a year, we were able to help him put new roofs on all of his properties, over 8,000 squares, sold on technology, sold on the creative side and the innovative side, which now we're able to apply on our residential business. In 2018, we did 308 projects as we continued. And this might be one of our proudest, or my proudest achievements that we had, is in that year, we sell Owens Corning. It's a shingle manufacturer. There's three main ones, but Owens Corning is a national provider of shingles, and you are only invited to be a platinum contractor by the manufacturer. And Owens Corning reached out to us and said, hey, we'd like you to be an Owens Corning Platinum Preferred Contractor. And what does that mean? That means less than 1% of the contractors in the whole United States are on that program. At the time we were accepted on, there were 530 contractors. In our market right here, there's less than five, or there are five that are Platinum Preferred Contractors. And we now, in a very short time frame, got ourselves in the position to be one of the best and unique. And we're doing that by leveraging multiple technologies in the software, which we talked about before. I'll keep moving. We went into our own software now, that through this automation and through technology and through the creative, innovative side, we have our own reports that we have here, how we're able to help property management companies, homeowner associations grow and become more successful. And these are some more of the reports that we have. Trying to move through. In the end of 2019, we did 262 projects. Here's a graph of how we've grown. Built on leadership qualities. You want to have a will to win. You want to have confidence. You want to have honesty, integrity. You want to have faith. You want to have the empathy side of things, passion, and use it to inspire and the innovative. In 2019, 2020, this is our growth. And as I finalize it out here, I know we're running on time. I'll click through real quick. This is just showing some of our growth that way. COVID-19 was a challenge for us. And through all these stepping stones that we took to get to where we're at, we ended up having a complete touchless process. As we know, COVID hit. Nobody wanted people inside the homes. Insurance companies didn't want to send insurance adjusters to properties, and we were able to fill that gap in that through our innovation and through our technology, we were able to do a touchless process for homeowners and able to help them out. In 2020, we did 388 projects in the Des Moines area. We did an additional 340 additional projects over in Eastern Iowa. And like she had said, we did over 750 projects and over $12 million in total business. Here's a picture of our team as of yesterday, and we're developing for the future is what we're doing. And I've said it multiple times. I think in business and as owners, you want to have a will to win, and you want to have confidence. You want to have honesty, and you want to have integrity. If you don't have that, your business is going to go nowhere. One thing, you want to have faith. You have to believe in something higher than yourself, something bigger than yourself, and then you have to apply empathy on the backside with your customers. You want to inspire your team. You want to have it with passion behind it. You also need to be creative. You have to be innovative on what you're doing. The three things I would say that's really important on top of that is make sure you structure your life the right way as I finalize this out. First of all, you need to have your faith be a priority, whatever that is for you. You have to have family. Family's number two. You got to keep it there in the right path, because if you don't put it in the right order, you need to have business be last, because your business isn't going to fail, or it is going to fail if you don't have faith and you don't properly structure your family. So that's pretty much my story and where we're at. I hope you've gotten something out of it. I can throw it back down if there's questions, anything for me. I can turn it back over to you guys, but that's my story I wanted to share with everyone. Christina, all you.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Hold on. I am stuck. Hold on.
Get out. Wow.
So Christina's computer is frozen. So if any of you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and Chandler can answer them.
Can you shoot those questions at me, Molly, if you see them? I don't see where the chat is on my screen. I apologize.
Yeah. We have a question from Deborah. What metrics do you use to determine when to invest in the future tools for your business instead of putting money into savings?
What metrics do I use? If you talk to my staff here, I have, it's a gut is where I go with it. I have a gut, and I know that isn't what people want to hear, but as much of a gut instinct as to where you're at in your dollars and cents. I've always gone off of that. When my gut's on, it's on, and I can't give you an exact number, to be honest with you. I will say this, I do in my process, I have a lot of, and there's some that are on here right now that are mentors of mine that have helped me, that I am a person that I like to talk things out, and my team around me helps me make those decisions. And when you get 5 people at a table and they all start to shake their head this way, or you go to a specific mentor and the mentor's like, you got this, and this is the time. In my path, it's been those mentors, it's been those people that are around me that have helped me in those decisions. I hope that helps.
And we have another question. If you had to do one thing different, what would it be?
In the beginning, when I started my business, I was a micromanager, and I probably my team would tell me I still am to this day. My biggest challenge that I had was me personally changing who I am as a person and growing as a person. If I could go back and change anything, I would say it would be getting away from being a micromanager and putting faith in my team sooner than I did.
And then we have another question. How did you overcome having a low credit score when you needed to grow your business?
My business has been built on, that's a very good question. I paid cash. I literally paid cash. I had a couple vendors in the beginning that allowed us to have a little bit of a line of credit, but it was scratching and clawing. The first 3 years, just like I said, that second year when we couldn't afford the hotel rooms, it's because we simply didn't have money. We didn't have money for groceries at my kitchen table at home, let alone to go pay for a hotel room. And even to this day, we try to make sure that we pay everything. We don't use our line of credit. We try to stay away from it as much as we can, but it's becoming, you have to be very disciplined. I'm a very unorganized person. I have a great person. I have a guy by the name of Chris that runs my finances, and he's very good at what he does, and he makes sure that I am in line in everything that we do, but you have to be disciplined.
That's good. What local resources did you use? Did you use the chamber, SBA, anybody to help you along your journey?
There's a storyline. Part of the story I didn't talk about is also when we started this business, we were in debt to Iowa Workforce Development for $150,000. We were in debt to the state and Fed in different areas. There wasn't really too many resources that were out there to help us, to be real honest with you. A lot of this was, again, back to scratching and clawing. There wasn't one source I was able to turn to outside of the mentors. And again, many of them are on here right now, but going to them, getting their advice, when to make the right decision. Growing is sometimes painful. We may want it, and everybody here or anybody that's an entrepreneur, we want everything today. I'm a today person, and it's been really hard to change from a today person to, that's actually 2 years from now, and I have to take step by step to step. So things that we would want to do right now, I would have to push off for a year or 6 months to be able to make that move or that purchase or payment or whatever we were. But there wasn't really anybody around that helped us get to that. Now, once we got to success and that credit score started to change, everybody now is willing to help us. It's a whole different world today.
For sure. How did you make time for your family during the unpredictable storms?
I'm fortunate that I married into my wife was from construction. She understood construction. And it's a great question because in the beginning, we were working the 80, 90 hours a week. There was a lot of time I wasn't home. You can go to some of my older children. There was many events that I missed and I sacrificed because of what we needed to do to become successful. I think it's a challenge of being in an entrepreneur and trying to build a business, but you have to have a partner and a teammate, and that again goes back to faith. You got to have faith backing you, and you have to have very good conversations. You have to communicate very well with your significant other, whoever that may be. I think you need to be in whatever that faith is to you. For me, it's the word, and you have to believe it.
We just have like 10 more minutes left. We have 2 more questions.
Great.
On a relative scale, how transparent are you with your staff with regard to finances? And then when things were down, how did you keep your employees?
I'm probably too transparent with my team. Going back to year one and 2 and 3, My team knew exactly what was going on. I recall a Friday coming in again. I'd mentioned Chris. I came into Chris on a Friday, and this is where, back to the faith thing, you got to let something go, whatever you believe in. And I walked in, and that day I had $20,000 on a Friday that we had to cut checks for. And we didn't have the money in the account. We might have had a couple $100. And I walked in, and I recall Chris looking at me, and I looked at Chris. He goes, "What are we going to do?" And I looked at him, and I said, "Cut the checks," because Chris knew we had no money in the account. And Chris went ahead and cut the checks. And I'm not kidding you, at 4:50 that day, a person walked through the front door and said, "We want to use you as a customer," and proceeded to write a check for $19,700 and some odd dollars. And it paid for all those checks. So that's where faith pays in. As to my workers, there were Fridays I would come in and I'd say, "Guys, we don't have money today. Can you hold off a week?" And they did. And I think that goes back to being passionate and inspiring. If you get a team that believes in you, and they believe in what you're doing, and they believe your course, and you're all in, you're going to have a team that's going to follow you. And the ones that don't want to follow you, or they see the trials and they don't want to, they're going to fall by the wayside. But I honestly believe on your little red, whether you call it a little red wagon, whether you call it your school bus, the people that get on that bus that are going to follow you, they're going to follow you. And you just have to be the leader that's going to inspire them. And for us, that I'm very transparent with my team and where we're at on our financials. What was the second part of that question?
When things were down, how did you keep your employees?
There were times, how do we keep our employees? I think what I kept on is those points we went over. I think the team understood we were being honest. Everybody wants to be a part of a good cause, and they want to be so, and they also want to be sold, just like I said. I just want to be somebody special, and I want to be somebody unique. And as leaders, I think we have to go to our teams and we have to sell them on how they're unique and how they're special, and how every little thing that they do is special and an intricate part of your business. Even when times are hard, you have to sell them on the fact of how important they are. And that's what people want. They want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And those that don't want to be a part of that, you might want to question whether you really need them to be a part of your team.
Last question. It's hard to hire people. How did you find good people?
It's really hard to hire people today.
For sure.
It's numbers. It's our biggest challenge. We just had our Monday morning meeting here, and our biggest challenge right now we're going through is actually developing and having a full-fledged HR department. When we started to do the growth in 2016, 2015, 2016 into 17, we actually had a person that we had hired, and their whole job was to hire people. That's all they were here for. And we literally went through numbers. I mean, in the unfortunate part of where we're at today in the world, I think we as owners are going to have to be willing to go out and interview 100, 200 people and run the numbers and believe on your core values. Make sure your core values are sitting there in front of you every time you interview somebody, and work through them, and that they match you. Out of 100 people, I think you're going to get 1 to 3 people out of 100 interviews in the way we are today. Back then, I think it was sold back in the beginning. It was sold on our dream. I sold our story. And even to this day, we talk about our story, living in a tent, where we came from, where we're going to, some of the people that you bring onto your team, they might be making $30,000, $40,000 a year. You want to sell them on the fact you're going to get them to $50,000, $60,000 a year. If they're at 50, 60, sell them on the fact you're going to help them figure out how to get to 80, 90, and sell them on, hey, hook your wagon up to mine. I obviously have goals and dreams that I want to get to, but I have to have all these people over here, and I got to help them meet their goals and dreams. And you got to have the empathy to go back to that and help them make the steps, because if they all make the steps to get to where their dreams are, you're going to be able to reach any dream you have, and then you get to share it, and then you get to help other people out. And whether it's in the community, whether it's in your church, whether it's however, that would be what our success has been, I think. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to wrap up today. Thank you, Chandler, for your time and for sharing your story. Just a reminder that this is being recorded and will be available on our website in the next couple days or maybe next week. And then also our next top 5 is in October, and that is on our events page, dsmpartnership.com/events. And you can register for that today. So thank you so much, and enjoy your day.
Thank you.